One shot, one street, one moment of hesitation. On June 28, 1914, a 19-year-old assassin fired 2 bullets from a pistol, and by the time the smoke cleared, 20 million people would die. This is the story of the assassination that started World War I, and how a single decision unraveled the entire 20th century. Watch till the end to hear the moment that should have stopped the war, but didn't. June 1914. Europe is a powder keg disguised as a continent of gentlemen, where emperors dine together while secretly planning each other's destruction. Austria-Hungary controls a patchwork empire held together by tradition and force, ruling over Slavs, Czechs, and other ethnic groups who dream of independence. In the Balkans, Serbian nationalism burns like a slow fuse, threatening to ignite the entire region. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, isn't your typical royal warmonger, unlike his uncle Emperor Franz Joseph, who sees military force as the solution to every problem. Franz Ferdinand favors negotiation and reform. He envisions transforming the dual monarchy into a federation that could give minorities more autonomy, a vision that terrifies both Austrian hardliners and Serbian nationalists. The Serbs fear that reform might satisfy their people's grievances, making independence less appealing. Austrian military leaders worry that concessions will be seen as weakness, encouraging more rebellion. Both sides prefer the clarity of conflict to the ambiguity of compromise. Into this volatile situation comes a decision that seems routine, but proves fatal. Franz Ferdinand will visit Sarajevo, the capital of recently annexed Bosnia-Herzegovina, on June 28th, the anniversary of the Battle of Kosovo, a date sacred to Serbian nationalism. The visit is intended as a diplomatic gesture, a chance for the heir to show his moderate face to a restive population. But to Serbian revolutionaries, it's provocation wrapped in pageantry. Among those revolutionaries is a secret organization called the Black Hand, led by Colonel Dragutin Dimitrijević, a man known as Apis, who believes that violence is the only language empires understand. When the Black Hand learns of Franz Ferdinand's planned visit, they see opportunity where the Austrians see diplomacy. The stage is set, the actors are in position. All that remains is for someone to pull the trigger. June 28, 1914, dawns bright and warm in Sarajevo. Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie arrive by train from Vienna, unaware that 7 young men are positioning themselves along the parade route with bombs and pistols in their pockets. The security arrangements are catastrophically inadequate. Local authorities have assigned fewer than 200 police officers to protect the heir to one of Europe's greatest empires as he travels through a city seething with nationalist sentiment. Franz Ferdinand and Sophie climb into an open-topped car for the journey through Sarajevo's narrow streets. The Archduke wears a military uniform, decorated with medals and a plumed hat. Sophie sits beside him, in an elegant white dress and large hat. As the motorcade begins its journey toward the town hall, the 7 conspirators take their positions along the route. They're young men, most barely out of their teens, fueled by revolutionary fervor and armed with weapons provided by the Black Hand. At 10:15 a.m. comes the first attempt, one that nearly ends the entire plot. Nedeljko Kabrinović, positioned near the Miljacka River, steps forward as the Archduke's car approaches. He strikes the cap of his bomb against a lamppost to activate the 10-second fuse, then hurls it toward the royal car. Franz Ferdinand sees the object flying toward him and deflects it with his arm. The bomb bounces off the car's folded roof and explodes under the vehicle behind them, wounding several spectators and officers in the following car. Kabrinović immediately swallows cyanide and jumps into the river, but the poison is old and weak, it only makes him vomit, and the river is only 4 inches deep. He's quickly arrested, beaten by angry spectators, and dragged away by police. The motorcade stops. Franz Ferdinand checks on the wounded officers, demonstrating the personal courage that made him popular with military personnel, despite his specific inclinations. An aide suggests they abandon the visit and return to safety. And this is where it should have ended. Had Franz Ferdinand turned around here, gotten back on his train, and returned to Vienna, World War I might never have happened. But Franz Ferdinand makes a decision that changes history. He insists on continuing to the town hall as planned, then visiting the wounded officers in the hospital. "Do you think Sarajevo is full of assassins?" he asks dismissively. As it turns out, yes. And one of them is about to get a second chance. After the ceremony at the town hall, Franz Ferdinand decides to alter the planned route to visit the wounded officers at the hospital. It's a compassionate gesture that will prove fatal, not because of the decision itself, but because of a communication failure that puts him directly in the path of an assassin who had given up hope. The problem is simple, but catastrophic. Nobody tells the drivers about the route change. Count Franz von Boos-Waldeck, the car's owner who knows the streets, should be giving directions, but he's riding in a different vehicle. The Archduke's driver, Leopold Leuker, only knows the original route to the museum, not the new path to the hospital. As the motorcade sets off from the town hall, Gavrilo Princip, one of the conspirators, is standing on a street corner eating a sandwich at Moritz Schiller's delicatessen. The 19-year-old had positioned himself earlier for the original route, but after the failed bombing, he assumed the mission was over. The royal couple would surely take security precautions or perhaps cancel the visit entirely. Meanwhile, the lead car follows the new route toward the hospital, but Leopold Leuker, driving the Archduke's car, continues straight on Franz Joseph Street, the original route toward the museum. General Oskar Potierek, sitting in the front seat, suddenly realizes the mistake. "What is this?" he shouts. "This is the wrong way! We're supposed to take the Appell-Quai!" Leuker stops the car and begins to reverse, pulling up directly in front of Moritz Schiller's delicatessen, exactly where Gavrilo Princip is standing. For a moment that seems to stretch into eternity, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire sits motionless in an open car less than 5 feet from an armed assassin. Princip looks up from his sandwich and sees, as if materialized by fate itself, the target he had given up hope of reaching. This time, history didn't give him a second chance, it gave him a second shot. If you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe for more stories about the decisions that changed everything. Thanks to all who do. Gavrilo Princip steps forward and draws his Belgian-made Browning pistol. At point-blank range, with the car stationary and his targets unable to flee, he fires 2 shots in quick succession. The first bullet strikes Franz Ferdinand in the neck, severing his jugular vein. The second hits Sophie in the abdomen, tearing through her corset and into her vital organs. For a few seconds, nobody understands what has happened. The shots are sharp and sudden, but in the chaos and confusion following the earlier bombing attempt, some witnesses think they're hearing backfiring from the car's engine. Franz Ferdinand remains upright in his seat, his military training keeping him composed, even as blood begins to soak his uniform. Sophie slumps against him, her white dress turning crimson. Count Harrach, the Archduke's bodyguard, leaps onto the car and begins hitting Princip with his sword. Other bystanders join in beating the assassin as police finally arrive to arrest him. It's Sophie who speaks first, her voice barely a whisper. "In God's name, what happened?" Then, seeing her husband's condition, "Don't die, Franz, don't die, stay alive for our children." Franz Ferdinand, even as his life drains away, tries to comfort his wife. "Sophie dear, Sophie dear." Within minutes, both are unconscious. By 11:30 a.m., they are both dead. Princip is dragged away by police, his mission accomplished in a way that exceeds his wildest hopes. But as he's beaten and arrested, he has no idea what he has truly set in motion. The 2 bullets he fired won't just kill an archduke and his wife, they will shatter empires, redraw maps, and unleash technologies of destruction that will define the next century. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand should have been a criminal matter for the local courts. Instead, it becomes the trigger for the most devastating war in human history. Within hours of the murders, Austrian officials begin connecting the dots between the assassins and Serbian intelligence. The weapons used in the attack were traced to Serbian military arsenals. The Black Hand's connections to the Serbian government, while officially denied, are impossible to ignore. Austria-Hungary sees an opportunity to settle the Serbian question once and for all. On July 5th, Germany gives Austria a blank check, unconditional support for any action against Serbia. With German backing secured, Austria prepares an ultimatum designed to be rejected. The Austrian demands are deliberately humiliating. Serbia must suppress anti-Austrian organizations, allow Austrian officials to participate in investigating the assassination on Serbian soil, and essentially surrender its sovereignty in matters involving Austria-Hungary. Serbia accepts most of the demands, but balks at allowing Austrian officials to operate independently on Serbian territory. For Austria, this partial rejection is enough. On July 28th, exactly 1 month after the assassination, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. But what should have been a localized conflict in the Balkans triggers a catastrophic chain reaction through Europe's alliance system. Russia, bound by Slavic solidarity and treaty obligations, mobilizes to defend Serbia. Germany, honoring its alliance with Austria, declares war on Russia on August 1st. France, allied with Russia, finds itself at war with Germany. Britain, committed to defending Belgian neutrality, enters the war when Germany invades Belgium on August 4th. Within 6 weeks of Princip's shots in Sarajevo, all the major powers of Europe are mobilizing millions of men for a conflict none of them truly wanted, but all of them felt compelled to fight. The Ottoman Empire joins the Central Powers in October. Italy enters on the Allied side in 1915. Eventually, the United States, Japan, and dozens of other nations will be drawn into the vortex. 1 gun, 7 conspirators, 2 bullets, 20 million dead. The Great War, as it was initially called, was supposed to be over by Christmas 1914. Instead, it raged for 4 years and transformed the world in ways that continue to shape our lives today. 4 great empires collapsed in the war's aftermath. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, which Franz Ferdinand had hoped to reform and preserve, disintegrated into multiple successor states. The German Empire fell, replaced by the Weimar Republic, and eventually by something far worse. The Russian Empire collapsed into revolution, civil war, and the birth of the Soviet Union. The Ottoman Empire fragmented, creating the modern Middle East with borders drawn by European diplomats, who understood neither the region's history nor its people. The war's conclusion at Versailles in 1919 created as many problems as it solved. Germany was humiliated and economically devastated, creating conditions that would be exploited by Adolf Hitler. The new map of Europe left millions of ethnic minorities stranded in hostile nations, fueling future conflicts. The technologies developed during World War I, poison gas, aircraft, tanks, submarines, would be perfected and turned to even deadlier purposes in World War II. The industrial capacity mobilized for the war effort would later enable the Holocaust. The Russian Revolution, sparked by military defeats and economic collapse during the war, gave birth to the Soviet Union and 70 years of communist rule that shaped the entire 20th century. The Cold War, nuclear weapons, and countless proxy conflicts can trace their origins to the chaos unleashed in 1914. In the Middle East, the collapse of the Ottoman Empire and the secret deals made during the war created artificial states and arbitrary borders that continue to generate conflict today. Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Israel all exist in forms shaped by decisions made during and after World War I. Gavrilo Princip, the 19-year-old who fired the shots, died in prison of tuberculosis in 1918, never fully comprehending what he had unleashed. The world we live in today, from the European Union to the United Nations, from the ongoing conflicts in the Balkans to the persistence of ethnic nationalism, still bears the scars of that moment, when a wrong turn put an archduke's car in front of a delicatessen where a young revolutionary was eating lunch. Franz Ferdinand's death did more than eliminate a single political figure. It shattered the illusion that European civilization had evolved beyond barbarism, that rational diplomacy could always prevent irrational conflict, that the great powers of the world had too much to lose to risk everything on a war. All it took was 2 bullets to strip away the veneer of civilization and reveal the savagery beneath. Perhaps most tragically, Franz Ferdinand himself might have been the one leader capable of preventing the war his death triggered. His vision of a federated Austria-Hungary, his moderate approach to ethnic tensions, his understanding that empires must adapt or die, all of this died with him in Sarajevo. The man whose murder started World War I was probably the one person who could have prevented it. But history is written by bullets as much as ballots, by wrong turns as much as right decisions, by 19-year-old revolutionaries with sandwiches, as much as by emperors with armies. And sometimes the smallest actions have the largest consequences. Do you think World War I would have happened without this assassination? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching Nefarious History. If you want more stories of the moments that changed everything, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a video.